Welcome to Inkquiring Minds. My name is Doug and I'm back with another fountain pen review. When I reviewed the new Nahvalur Eclipse retractable fountain pen a couple of weeks ago, I gave one away to a lucky subscriber. And several people asked me why I didn't compare the Eclipse to the Platinum Curidas. Well, the explanation is really simple. I don't have one of those pens. I even said that in the video. And the Lamy Dialogue 3. And also the Platinum Curidas, of course, but I don't have a Curidas, but I do have this fake Dialogue 3. See? But people asked anyway. Why don't you show the Curidas? It makes me want to shout. So send me your Curidas and I'll do a comparison. Well, forget it, because my Calgary Pen Club friend Stephen stepped up and handed me his Curidas for comparison. Thank you, Stephen. So now that I have a Curidas, let's do a comparison with the Eclipse right now. Since this is the first Platinum Curidas I've ever used, let's go through some of the parts and features of this pen, and then I'll compare it to the Eclipse. Platinum named the Curidas by combining the Japanese word for extending the nib with the English word curiosity. There, you learned something. The Curidas retails for around $80 US, with the new solid color blue and matte black versions selling for around $92 US. They come with extra fine, fine, or medium steel nibs. The transparent colors are Prism Crystal, Gran Red, Abyss Blue, Urban Green, and Graphite Smoke. This is the Graphite Smoke, and it has a medium steel nib. And this medium steel nib makes a 0.5 millimeter line, which is a Western fine. So I expect the fine will be an extra fine, and the extra fine will be an extra fine, as is typical with Eastern nibs. Like other retractable pens, you press on the knock and extends the nib through the little trapdoor mechanism at the front. The trapdoor's hinge has to go somewhere, so there's a little bump on the bottom of the nose cone of the pen. If you grip your pen with your finger under this part, that might be a problem for you. Similar to the Pilot Vanishing Point, the Curidas has the clip on the top of the pen, so if you're a thumb over death gripper, this might be an issue for you as well. The clip can be removed apparently with some kind of a tool that I don't have, so I'll just assume that's true. Let me know in the comments if you successfully removed the clip from your Curidas without damaging it. Because the pen is transparent, you can see all the inner workings of this pen. I think this is unfortunate, but from the photos of the new solid color Curidas pens, I think they're more visually pleasing. I think this looks like a dog's breakfast of stuff.
Holy shit!
Some people think it's cool, and I would too if the inner workings were, well, more elegant. There are a lot of moving parts and finicky bits on the inside of this pen. There's some fascinating engineering going on here, don't get me wrong, but I think this is better off being solid. Another reason for it being solid is the amount of ink that gets gunked up in the front of the pen. I don't know how long Stephen has had this pen, but you can see the amount of old gunky ink buildup around the inside of that nose cone. Unfortunately, the nose cone is still transparent in the solid models. I don't find that the clip or the bump interfere with my grip, and I like the thick 13 millimeter body of the pen. The extract-retract mechanism is rather clunky rather than being smooth. The smoothest mechanism belongs to the Pilot Vanishing Point LS or its clone, the Majon A3, which is super silent. The knock on the Curidas is a little long for my liking, as my medium hands have difficulty stretching to the very end of that knock. To fill the Curidas, you unscrew the back of the pen and that part comes off to reveal the converter assembly, which is removed with a press and a turn. Those little bayonet kind of fixture in here with that little dot goes in and turns and retracts. So you just give it a push and a turn and it comes out. It's again a little bit clunky. If you push too far, it won't turn. You have to line up the button and let it out. And then you have the nib unit with the Platinum standard cartridge converter inside, which you have to tug on the knob to get out. This isn't my pen, so I'm not going to pull that out. And on the front of the pen, you have the spring. The rear of the pen comes apart further with that knock just falling out the front like that. And you can see the little cam mechanism that keeps the nib either retracted or extended by flipping around every time you press that knock. And you can see the little angled ribs on the inside of the back of the pen that line up with the ribs. You just press that knock back down in, and the knock extends again. And the unit will also accept Platinum proprietary cartridges. Taking the nib unit out leaves the front trap door open, so you can give the front of the pen a rinse with a bulb syringe or just drop it in an ultrasonic bath to clean up all that extraneous ink. It always amazes me how many people comment on their demonstrator pens having ink on the inside of them. It's so unsightly. Well, don't get a demonstrator then. You know, duh.
I am smart. S-M-R-T. I mean S-M-A-R-T.
Put it back together again, put the spring in, line up the dot, give it a turn, and it pops back out again, and screw on the back of the pen. So there are all kinds of moving parts on this machine. It is well built and engineered, just not as elegant as, say, a Lamy Dialog CC. Now let's compare it to the Eclipse. The first thing I have to say about the Eclipse is actually an update on my review. And you can see my review of this Nahvalur Eclipse by clicking right up here. But I said in that review that Majohn and Pilot cartridges fit a little loose inside this pen. Well, I've been using this pen with a Pilot cartridge for a couple of weeks now, and when I opened up the pen for this review, it had leaked inside the sleeve. So it didn't leak actually inside the pen, but inside this sleeve here. So I put the converter back in again, as it seems to be the only thing that fits. This seems to be a little bit simpler mechanism than the Platinum Curidas, with the same kind of internal structure as a Pilot vanishing point. You just put the nib unit back in and screw the back of the pen down, and you're back together again. And that trapdoor mechanism on the Eclipse is very, very similar to the Pilot vanishing point mechanism. So that is confirmed that Pilot and Majohn cartridges don't work with the Eclipse. We'll have to see if Nahvalur will come out with their own cartridges or make some adjustments. So here are the Curidas and the Eclipse side by side. Even though I'd never held a Curidas before, when I first saw the Eclipse, I figured it was closer in shape to the Curidas than any other retractable. The Curidas is about 5 millimeters longer by virtue of its weirdly long knock, but otherwise they're very close in size and shape. The Eclipse is obviously heavier, being aluminum rather than injection molded plastic. The Eclipse has a much chunkier mechanism because it's almost impossible for one-handed operation and is very difficult to use unless you use the one-handed desk maneuver. Let's look at some other comparisons for a moment. Here is the new Jinhao 10 retractable. Here is a Majohn A2 retractable, a Majohn A1. These are all relatively the same size, these pens, these knockoffs of the vanishing point. And here is a Pilot Decimo, which is the slimmer version of the Pilot vanishing point. And here is the aforementioned Majohn A3, which is the clone of the Pilot vanishing point LS. Now let's do some writing samples with the Curidas and the Nahvalur Eclipse. Both pens are marked that they have medium steel nibs. Here's the Nahvalur with a medium nib. Now I mentioned before that I'd moved the clip around so it was out of the way of my grip, but I kept gripping it with the clip on top, and of course the nib was sideways. So I've moved it back, and I'm getting used to holding the pen almost down to the cone with my fingers on the clip on the side, and I'm getting used to that now. So here is the Nahvalur. I didn't spell that right. Nahvalur Eclipse. And it has a medium steel nib. It's very wet and extremely smooth with a tiniest amount of feedback. Now, it didn't write like that out of the box. I had to spread those tines a little bit to make it write wetter and smoother. But now it's just gorgeous. And it has a 0.5 millimeter line, which is a Western fine. Now let's give the Curidas a try. And this is the Platinum Curidas, and it also has a medium steel nib, advertised as such anyway. And this is nicely wet as well, and you might be able to hear that. It has that typical platinum feedback. I like to say it feels like a 2H pencil on vellum. And I say typical platinum feedback because if you've ever used a Platinum, a 3776 or a President or something like that, you'll recognize that kind of toothy feel on the page. Some people like it, some people not so much. And this is a 0.5 millimeter line, which is a Western fine. Now I did say that this Eclipse was 0.5, but it's really between a 0.4 and a 0.5. Very, very close. The medium Eclipse is slightly thinner than the medium Curidas, but they're both fine nibs. So which retractable pen is best? This is all up to your own personal taste here, because these pens both write nicely, are about the same thickness, size, and shape, and they're pretty much at the same price point. So it's your choice. Do you like a retractable to be a little bit heavier? This Narwhal is 36 grams and the Curidas is 29. This Majon A2 is the lightest of my retractable pens and weighs in at only 21.3 grams. And the Pilot Decimo, which belongs to my wife, is only 22 grams, but is a lot slimmer than either the Curidas or the Narwhal. The Eclipse has an unusual mechanism that has some relatively sharp edges in your grip. The Curidas feels a bit clunky when you use the mechanism, and it has a lot of moving parts, but the body is very smooth to the touch. For only a few bucks more, you can get the matte solid finish version, which was just released a couple of months ago. And there you have it. Thanks go out to Stephen for loaning me his Platinum Curidas for comparison with the Narwhal Eclipse. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section. You'll get cool emojis, badges, sneak peek unboxing videos, as well as instant access to my videos the moment I post them. And that just leaves it for me to say, thank you for watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.